Well, yes, we went to see Jesus Revolution movie last night, and I've written a draft copy of a review. I've got to do a lot of work on it, but what it tells me is how we can so easily get our ego involved in what God is doing. And I'm not talking about the movie, which actually is probably, upon reflection, a lot more accurate than I care to imagine. But I'm talking about the whole idea of a movement. And of course, I was out in California soon after the events that happened in this movie, and I'm aware the of the actors and the assets that are in the film. And it's the distinction between a revival and a movement. Now, a revival is something that goes deep, and a movement is something that goes wide. This is my takeaway from the film. I'll say it again. A revival, and we're talking about the Jesus Movement revival, of which I was a part, and it spanned from 1967 in San Francisco through to around 1974, 75, something like that. The difference between a revival and a movement, and a revival spawned a movement. And just so you know, Jesus Revolution, the movie, is about a movement, not about revival. And I think if you get that in place in your thinking, which I should have done before I went to see the movie, it will make the film far more enjoyable and understandable. And as such, there's some beautiful one-liners in there that just reveal the ego of Lonnie Frisbee. And they're going to be in my review. My notes are upstairs. I'm not going to try to quote you, but, well, I will. Lonnie basically says to Chuck Smith, who's this straight pastor, that the movement wouldn't be anything without him, that the movement needs him. Because Lonnie's head is in a completely different place from where we were in Northern California, where our focus, yes, was on going into all the world and preaching the gospel, which I suppose you could say a focus on creating a movement. But our inner focus was total surrender to Jesus Christ and discipleship. Now, we made a lot of mistakes up in Northern California back in the early 1970s. Let's not make any mistake about it. But we were aware of the ego-tripping Christians in Los Angeles. And in fact, I was down in Los Angeles for street outreach just soon after the period this film covers. And we've had converts come back up to Northern California, and we've had to deal with issues that they brought with them. False ideas about what it means to be a Christian. I think, the film can't be criticized for this because it's generally true to real life. There's some changes, but it's generally like John Higgins was the one who introduced Chuck Smith to the hippies, not Lonnie Frisbee. I think that's the number one big mistake. And John Higgins went out to found the Shiloh Ministries, which is a commune ministry that had, I think, 170 plus communes across America before it folded. And so he has a massive contribution to the Jesus movement. But of course, the film is not a documentary, and it's not even a drama documentary about the Jesus movement. It is a drama that revolves around three protagonists: Lonnie Frisbee, the hippie preacher; Chuck Smith, the straight pastor; and Lonnie Frisbee, who was the protege of Chuck Smith and who went on to found Harvest Ministries, which is still today. And some people have said it's a 2-hour advert for Lonnie to Greg Laurie's ministry. Well, be that as it may. Filmically, I found it a little bit choppy. I didn't find that it had a really smooth dramatic arc, unless you can call the beginning of the film showing Time magazine up to your congregation the actual factual headline cover of God is Dead, and then the film culminating at Pirates Cove with Chuck Smith reading a copy of Time magazine which has Jesus Revolution on the front cover. That really is the dramatic arc in a nutshell, and the rest of it is about these three characters, their love interest, whether it's their wife or the girlfriend or whatever it is. And so I've got questions about how it comes across. Right, my wife has come down. I asked my wife when she came out of the cinema, I said, did you find it inspirational? And she said yes. So quite clearly she said yes. So I'm happy about that. So I don't want to pour cold water over the film. But I feel a bit embarrassed because if my wife or anybody else is coming away thinking that this is what the Jesus movement was like, this was the Jesus movement I was a part of. I wasn't a part of the Jesus movement that looked like that, to be honest with you. I really, really wasn't. Even though I was in California throughout most of the 1970s, California or in other Jesus communes, throughout most of the 70s before I came back to England. What was the real fun though was when we came out of the cinema, I was able to give out gospel tracts to everybody that had seen the film in Kai Gladys, including the two staffers, the usherette and the cleaner. And I was able to say, hey, here's a gospel tract. I'm a genuine Californian Jesus freak. And that was fun. But there weren't that many people in the cinemas, to be honest with you. So go and see it if you can. It's on general release until only this Tuesday in UK. Whether it will get another release, I don't know. Judging by the numbers in the cinema, probably not. And that's really my takeaway on it. Is it a good film? Sort of. But it could have been better, I think, if it hadn't focused so much on Lonnie and Chuck Smith, which of course the whole reason they made the film. I think what it tells me is there's a desperate need for another film that shows what was happening in the wider movement. The beginning of the film, there is a nod toward San Francisco and Haight-Ashbury and the fact that the Jesus revival actually began there in Haight-Ashbury, Summer of Blood, 1967, actually before that, in San Francisco. So it's a very slight nod to the roots of the Jesus movement. But beyond that, it was all about Calvary Chapel. And, you know, I'm coming out the theatre thinking, that wasn't it. There was so much more. Yes, Calvary Chapel was an important part. Oh, and finally, okay, it had the music track over the credits at the end was excellent. But I think it was a shame. I think they missed a beat by not using the original love song tracks in the film, and they could have overdubbed the actress playing. I think that was a great shame because there's no way that the love song tracks, anything touching like they were the originals that are on the love song albums. So I think that was a big miss. It was what was funny was seeing a total recreation of the conversation between Lonnie Frisbee and Kathryn Kuhlman, and it's a cringeworthy clip that's available on YouTube, and they recreated it with the actors. It was just as cringeworthy. I can't blame the movie for it, but it highlighted the ego, fragility. You know, Kathryn Kuhlman's asking Lonnie, are you a prophet? And he sort of comes up with an explanation and he ends up saying, well, yeah, I guess so. I can relate to that. But yeah, at one point, I think it's Connie says, it's all about you, Lonnie. That's the problem. It's all about you. I've reached out to Connie for comment. I've not heard back yet. And I've got to mention one other thing. Toward the end, about 3/4 of the way through the film, see if you spotted this. They actually use the actual audio footage, not the video, but the audio of David Wilkerson tearing into the Jesus movement when he was down in San Francisco, I think in the House of Miracles. Oh gosh, it's on my head, I can't remember where it is. I've got it on my YouTube channel, the actual video, and it's the most popular video I've ever put up on my channel. And they actually use the clip from David Wilkerson saying, hey, these hippie Christians, they're high on LSD, you know, they're retrograde and everything. Go to my YouTube channel, have a watch. Obviously, I'm not the only person that's got that clip on, but there it is. So I thought that was amusing. I bet 99% of people, even the Christians that are from California, I bet you guys missed David Wilkerson actually on that film. Having Billy Graham at the end, I thought it was great. I thought the end was great, the way they... and the fact it didn't delve into Lonnie's... characterization, I think, was weak. That's me. I think it could have gone deeper, more sublimely into... If I was directing the film, I would have took some of the love interest out and put a deeper characterization into it and got people thinking more about what is there more to life, not how can I and this girl create a church, which Lonnie says, I've got great plans, you know, I've got a great plan ahead. And I think that's a misstep from Lonnie. I'm not saying it's a misstep from the film. I think it reflects Greg Laurie at the end says that, you know, I've got great plans. And I think that is the mistake of the whole movement. God doesn't want our plans. He wants our submission, our surrender to Jesus Christ. And to end on a positive note, the film does have a remarkably well executed baptism scene, which incorporates a prayer of dedication to Jesus Christ. And I think they did that very, very well, remarkably well, because it could have come across so hokey and ho-dum, and it didn't. It came across as an early pivotal point in the film. And that, I think, justifies the film. They were able to actually incorporate what evangelicals call an altar call into the film without everybody walking out of theatre. I think that was very, very good. And ironically, that was one of the things that actually changed in the film from real life. Yes, Lonnie Frisbee led Greg Laurie to Jesus Christ, but he did it in the campus scene earlier in the film. In real life, that's when he went forward and received Christ, quote, received Christ, not during the baptism. But I'm going to totally forgive them for that, because if I was directing the film, I'd have done exactly the same. I'd have been I can imagine the director sitting there saying, how are we going to do this salvation scene without it coming across completely bizarre and weird and have everybody walk out? And I think the solution they came up with, they're to be applauded for it. And my takeaway from the film is that was a highlight. The baptisms were a highlight. And I think, yeah, it's good that it showed the human side of the Jesus movement, but it didn't really show the divine side of the Jesus movement. And so I think anybody coming away would still not realize that there was a revival going on. In fact, I don't know if people know what a revival even is. That's going to be topic for another video. This is my reflection on Jesus Revolution, the movie. It's been on general release, limited general release in United Kingdom this weekend. We went on opening weekend yesterday and saw it. And yeah, comments below. Some of my American friends are going to say, John, why are you criticizing such a good Christian movie? Well, I'm just being honest with you. I think it could have been more prophetic. I could have been more incisive. I think it could have been deeper spiritually without turning off people that are not into that. General entertainment, I don't know, I'm going to leave an open door on that one. I think the dramatic arc, as I said before, was a little weak. and I understand why they put the love interest in there, but even that could have had more reflection, etc. Oh yeah, and finally, they do a recreation of a pop concert, and they got Janis Joplin on the stage, somebody acting Janis Joplin, and obviously they haven't looked at the footage of Janis Joplin very closely because she was so tame compared to the real Janis Joplin. So I think they could have pulled out the stops there and done a real something with Janis Joplin and maybe used one of her real tracks. But there you are. That's the way the film was. I'm glad they made it. I think there definitely needs to be a follow-up, or somebody needs to do a film about the actual revival aspect and widen it out to at least all of California, include a film about the tension between Northern California Christians and Southern California Christians. That would have made a dramatic film. If anybody wants help wants advice on producing such a film, I'm available. You can hire me. I'm very happy to do it. I'm not in a position to direct a film of that. As some of you know, I'm an ex-film student as well as an ex-hippie, ex-Jesus freak from California. I'm here in England. I'm English. I've got a perspective. And yeah, I don't mind. You can hire me as a consultant if anybody wants to make a film that brings the tension between Northern and Southern California. Count me in. Thanks so much. It's Johnny Ruffle. God bless you. Go see the film and let's see what you think of it. Hallelujah. Jesus is Lord. One way. Amen.